the Gophers. What a day that will be.
You're listening to Affirm Southern Gospel Radio.
Maybe you've been thinking about therapy. You realize a therapist could help you work things out, but
I can't afford it. Therapy is expensive.
Talkspace is different. Talkspace is one of only a few online mental health providers that takes insurance. Average copays are only $15.
I can afford $15.
And most insured members pay nothing.
Nothing? No copays at all? With insurance, I could see a therapist and I might not have to pay anything out of pocket?
That's right. Nothing should stand in your way of getting support from a caring, licensed therapist. And if you don't have insurance, no problem. You can pay out of pocket for a lower cost than in-person therapy. And because you meet your therapist online, you can schedule appointments for whenever and wherever it's most comfortable for you.
Wow, I'm feeling better already.
You can pay for Talkspace with insurance or get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Faith and prayer are intertwined with each other.
Where grace, joy, and healing flow into peace, wholeness, and fullness of life.
To help you bring it all together, just listen here.
We are Affirm Southern Gospel Radio.
Your back's up against the wall and you think you've been through it all and you've got nothing left inside to fight the good fight. Well, don't give up, don't give in. You've got faith and you've got friends, so be strong and keep holding on. God is working even when you can't see, so just believe that where there's a will, He has a way. Where there's a need, He hears us pray, and the answer is coming. Before you ask, the Savior knows, so trust the one who holds you close. 'Cause at the end of the day, where there's a will, He has a way. I've been in the boat you're in, and I've faced the waves and winds, and just like He brought me through, He'll do the same for you. The rain ain't gonna last. This storm.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody out. Good to see everybody. Well, it's a beautiful morning, beautiful Sunday morning. The Lord blessed us with. Before we get started, we'll ask anyone in the sanctuary have a spoken prayer request. Okay, Steve. All right, Bruce. Any others? Ruby? Okay. Ronnie?
Can you remember me and my family? Remember my two brothers, Ray Buckton and Ray Hicks? And remember Davis, when she's not feeling well.
Okay.
Remember our friend Linda Connor and our cousin Lisa Payne. She's somewhat better, so thanks for the prayers for her. Just remember our family together.
Ruby?
Can't remember Jacqueline, I just got off the phone with her, she's sick this morning.
Okay. Sis, you have something?
Yeah, please remember my brother and my sister. My brother was given news that he has a couple more months and he'll be gone. He told me he was very excited to go see mom and dad, so, in heaven, so. But he's prepared for it and he's not afraid. My sister as well, she has cancer in one kidney and I think we're gonna have to remove it.
Sis, Patty?
Remember my step-grandson and his family, they were in red water, actually last night, they were cars with food.
Wow.
But they released the family, the whole family to go home, so thank God for that. But keep them in prayer, because
Yes.
there's a problem there. Her, she's, got one that's pregnant, and they were concerned about her, so remember her.
Any others?
Remember Buddy and Georgia Freeman and her sister and our nation and missionaries, law enforcement, Russia and Ukraine. I still have two sisters that need prayer, and I have 3 young brothers.
Scotty?
I want to start praying for my stepfather and just keep praying for Evan.
And I got, Jamie called me this morning, gave me a big old long list, so. She made me write it down. She said to pray for her, she's gonna be traveling all week, just doing different things, because she's not gonna be here today. Marvin and Allison and the other daughter, they are traveling back today. Marvin's brother and nephew are super sick, they both need liver transplant, and they're not eligible, so they're Allison has surgery on Wednesday. Donna Likens is going, I guess today, she said. And Mark Stanley, Caroline, her granddaughter's out.
I have a word of praise for all, me and my family. We finally got moved, and it was good to rest and in your own bed again. And glad that's over with. Thankful we had family and that helped us for a little while while we were homeless. But now we got to reverse that procedure and unpack, and put everything away.
There's a hidden reason they were helping you, Tim.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Good point. But on a serious note, let's just be mindful of our time together and just pray that we're going to look into the Word here, and we're going to learn about Caleb. Man, what a man of faith he was. And, let's just see if hopefully we can get something from this today that will edify us and help us in our walk, right? Just ask His blessing on all the classes this morning and the teachers and the students as they look into the Word.
Tim, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second when you said teachers. I was listening to the message on the way to church, and they were talking about today is National Sunday School Teacher Day.
Wow.
And it said to let your Sunday school teachers know how much you appreciate them. I appreciate you, Tim.
Thank you, Carol. I wasn't aware. But
I wasn't either, but.
oh, yay. All right. With that, we'll stand and we'll ask Brother Mason to open us up this morning in prayer.
Our most kind, gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you because of your
Amen. Well, we're in Lesson 8 today, and I always try to kind of chronological keep up with what's going on. And when we go back to Mark's lesson last week, he finished in Joshua 7, and we're going to jump all the way to 14. So I just want to fill into the gap a little bit so we kind of get a level set of where we're at today. If you remember last week, they had just been given the promised land, right? They were just Joshua. They went across the Jordan. They're in the promised land, and sure enough, Israel sins. They hadn't been there very long, and Israel sinned. They had, And that's where Mark ended his lesson. And this thing that they took, it was called the accursed thing. And we're told, they were told not to touch it, avoid that, what it was, leave it alone. Kind of sounds like Adam, don't it, the Garden of Eden. But it was a silver, I looked it up, it was a silver Babylonian garment. It had 2 shekels of silver, 200 shekels of silver on it, a wedge of gold weighing 50 shekels, and there was a man named Achan, A-C-H-A-N. He saw it, he coveted that object, and judgment came upon the people right away. Achan was dealt with in the skip chapters. Achan, he saw this, he coveted it. As a result, he and his house was stoned to death, and their bodies were burnt. So God dealt with that issue, dealt with that sin, and now we're moving on in these subsequent chapters up to where we are. So this unfortunate incident with Achan is behind them. In chapters 8 through 13 that we don't look into, this is where several victories occur. God's people are moving through Canaan, and they're just conquering. They're battle after battle, they're winning. God's favor is with them. They're obedient at this point, and he is just helping them with this, overtake this land. It's very rapid and effective invasion, just victory after victory. So then we come to our chapter 14, where we're at today. The first 6 verses we skip in 14 are the people who make our literature. And I just want to touch on those because it's very important. They deal with division of the land for the tribes. Joshua has the 12 tribes there, and he's telling them which section of land is theirs. So they're at that point now. He's dividing up the land among the tribes of Israel. And today, our lesson, we're going to see where Caleb finally gets his due. From a previous lesson, back in Numbers, 45 years before this incident we're going to look at today, Caleb was given a promise, wasn't he? Caleb was given a promise. Moses told him, he said, this land that you stand on right now will be yours. Well, Caleb had to wait. Caleb was patient. Caleb was faithful all those years. And because of that, and our title of our lesson, Caleb had a heart for God. Absolutely. So let's read the text, and we'll kind of jump into this a little bit and discuss it. And I'll read the first verse. You guys read after me. 40 years old was I when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in mine heart. And Moses sware on that day, saying, surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord hath kept mine eye, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, they lie days as they were 45 years old. As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war, both to go out and come in. Now therefore give me this mountain, where the Lord spake to that day, for thou knowest since that day how the Canaanites were there, and the deceased of great repentance. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him and gave unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and the Zebulun, because that is all the God of Israel. Amen. Okay. So back up there at verse 7 at the beginning. Here he is, 85 years old, Caleb, and he reminds Joshua about how he was one of the spies sent out by Moses to report on the land. And he reminds Joshua of the report that he brought back to Moses. Do y'all remember that? Who was the other faithful spy besides Caleb on that mission 45 years ago? It was Joshua, okay? Joshua and Caleb were the only two that brought back the faithful report, hey, we can take the land, remember? The other 10 spies didn't feel that way, and they swayed the public opinion, and we know what happened there. They didn't get there and get to enter Canaan. Instead, they got the wilderness experience, right, for a whole generation. But Joshua and Caleb were the two survivors, and they're here having this discussion at this time. And I thought Joshua probably already knows this because he was there, right? He's the only one that was at the time. And verse 8, he says, nevertheless, my brethren, this is Caleb talking to Joshua. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me, the heart of the people heart of the people melt, but I wholly follow the Lord, my God. So back to that spy mission he's talking about. And again, we studied this. It's been a few months ago when we had that lesson back in Numbers. But 10 of the 12 spies gave a bad report, if you remember. They saw giants in the land. Remember? That scared them. They saw giants. Caleb says here that the report of the 10 unfaithful spies said it made the heart of the people melt. The people were scared from the bad report that came back. It scared the people. The majority ruled. Said that the giants in the land were actually seen bigger than the God, right? To those spies. There's where they messed up. God, therefore, as a reward, what did he do? He sends them back to the wilderness for 40 years because they didn't act on faith. They let the majority rule. However, Caleb and Joshua were the minority, right? And they're still alive while those other 10 have died. A whole generation has died. But notice Caleb's testimony of faith. He says, my counterparts swayed the people with their report. He says, I wholly, this is wholly with a W, W-H-O-L-L-Y, followed God. Caleb says he wholly followed the Lord. And we'll see this word holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, holy, referenced many times when it's concerning Caleb. Describing him as holy, following the Lord. If I'm wholly following him, what would be a characteristic of that person? One that's
holy, H-O-L-Y.
Yeah. If you're holy, H-W, you're going to exhibit H-O-L-Y, holiness. And that is to be consecrated, right? Dedicated to him completely. All in, isn't that what we're talking about here? This was Caleb. He was that. So when we think about the word holy with the W, do you know people that follow the Lord half-heartedly? Do I follow the Lord wholly? W. Or do we just do it when it's convenient or when we're not scared? Caleb, we're going to see Caleb was holy for 45 years in the wilderness experience. He kept that faith. We're going to talk about that. How do we do there? In Caleb's case, Caleb's wholly following the Lord led him to report back to Moses those 45 years ago, hey, with God's help, we can take the land. See? He was all in back then as a young man at the age of 40. Here he is at 85, and he's got that same heart. We're going to see that about him. He's 45 years ago, knowing God's promise, he knew that God would enable them to conquer it. He didn't have any doubts. Any thoughts so far? So you see what's going on. Caleb and Joshua having this. Joshua, as in our skip text, he's dividing up the land to the tribes. He's talking to Caleb about his allotment, obviously, and Caleb says, hey, you remember, Moses said, this was mine, and it is mine. He had that faith. He went back, he went to the leader in confidence that this is going to happen. He had been all those years in the wilderness looking towards Canaan, hadn't he? That's what we're going to see. And he goes on to say in verse 9, and Moses sware on that day, saying, surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast, there's that word again, wholly followed the Lord my God. So Caleb just reiterates back to Joshua that promise. Promise made to him in Deuteronomy 1, 35 and 36. Because you wholly followed the Lord, this land will be your inheritance. I don't think Caleb is being proud here, do you? I think it's confident, right? He's just being confident and he's stating a fact. Yeah, he's stating something that's been in his heart for 45 years, waiting for this moment. And it's rightfully his. It's a recollection of a fact that him and Moses had this discussion. I think he has complete faith in what he's saying will come to fruition. He's not saying, hey, Joshua, I'm pretty sure, but if you go back to the scroll, I think you'll see Moses said I could have this. No. He's not. He said, this is mine. You see the confidence in what he's saying. He's not going to have to go get a lawyer, right? No. This is it. This is the time. He says there's no doubt in my mind there's no doubt in his mind either. He's positive what he is saying is true, and God will fulfill the promise. He has lived on God's promises up to this point. Verse 10, and now, behold, the Lord hath kept me alive. And he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old, which is 85. So you think about the 45 years that's passed, the trials, the hardships that Caleb has gone through. In the wilderness, the Lord's kept him alive, kept him safe. Remember, him and Joshua was the only two remaining from that generation. He's reflecting. He's reflecting on this. For 45 years, he's kept the faith and he's held on to God's promise. They were both, Joshua and Caleb, were rewarded a long life, that one day they would step foot on the promised land. Remember, a whole generation would perish in the wilderness because of their unfaithfulness, except for Joshua and Caleb. So when I look at, I always try to see where we can relate with our modern life as Christians today with these Old Testament examples. I see a connection here when I look at Caleb and I think about us. He had to go back to that wilderness, remember, for a generation. Remember listening to the murmuring and the complaining. Remember that? Through all this time, he remains faithful. Even though he's in that wilderness, around all that negativity, he remains faithful. Remaining faithful while living among people that had no faith. Does that sound familiar? Are we in that wilderness too? We are somewhat in the wilderness, aren't we? So I think that's familiar for us. So in the midst of unfaithfulness, sin, murmuring, physically he is in the wilderness, but his heart is in Canaan, isn't it? He's still resting on that promise. He'll endure because he has an inheritance. Do we have an inheritance? Absolutely. Does the same God's promise apply to us today? Absolutely. He knows that when God makes promises, they are true. Y'all got anything to add? I'm just going to ramble on up here.
Jim, I just think that, in today's a little more current, I guess, we may get scared of situations
Also, when I think about Caleb and his life, we see one who started in the Lord and finished in the Lord. Not everybody finishes there, do they? You see that with Caleb, though, don't he? And I thought about Caleb in the wilderness, too. We're surrounded by the same. People that are unfaithful. People that murmur. Complain about their leaders. Don't we hear that? Sin. We're in a wilderness as well, when we look at it in that regard. But Caleb's faith was based on a promise from God. And again, through Christ, we have a promise too. A promise has been given to us. He promised to never leave us. Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you to the ends of the earth." And that's something we can rest on, right? Just like Caleb was resting on the promises. Think about it. Jesus said, "I'm with you to the ends of the earth." That's a promise, isn't it? Things become stressful. I'm with you. Things become frightening. I'm with you. Someone pulls a gun. I am with you, right? He's always there. It's a promise. You get a bad diagnosis. Hey, I'm with you. We need to have the heart of Caleb and know that he's with us. His promises are true, and he'll always be with us. Surrounded by everybody around me has abandoned Christ. I'm with you, right? That's kind of what we can get out of this. We take our Christian walk and we use Caleb as an example. We'd be in a pretty good place, wouldn't we? I think so. And John already touched on this, and you know, when I was reading these next couple verses, I thought of an older guy with so much spunk, so much ability. I think he put Chuck Norris to shame, I mean, he has not slowed down. That God blessed him, like John said, with that life and that health, In verse 11, he says, remember, he's 85 years old. "As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war both to go out and to come in." I love his attitude. Not your typical 85-year-old. Wouldn't you agree? Because of, again, it's that unwavering faith that's really the key there. There's just a sense of strength embedded in this man, and a lot of it is because of his faithfulness. Our bodies, we know they're going to break down over time, right? They do. It's just the way it is. We know that's what will happen. But there's no reason we should decline in our usefulness, right, to God. Again, Caleb was that example. He didn't slow down, did he? He said he wants to do more. He's looking forward. He's looking ahead. We're not finished. I'm not finished yet. I still have more to do. Give me this land. We're going to talk about that. The Bible tells us we can be renewed, right? We can be renewed daily, can we not? Yeah, physically the body is going to decline over time. And here, verse 12 is like he again, I'm talking about the spunk, the energy, the attitude. "Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in the day, for thou heardest in the day how the Anakims," and those, by the way, are the giants. There was the giants that lived there, "were there, and the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said." 85 years old, he says, "Give me the mountain. give me the giants. I'll drive them out. With the Lord's help, I can drive them out. I love that attitude. So the Anakims were the giants that remember 45 years ago when the spies went back and said there's giants in the land. The people, their heart melted is what the Bible told us. And they were scared. Caleb says, let me have them. That's where I want to go, where they are. You just got to admire the man's eagerness and faithfulness and eagerness to go there. He said, he's saying, I wasn't scared of them then, I'm not scared of them now. 85. I'm not afraid of them today. With the Lord's help, I'll be able to drive them out. That's what he says.
Tim, the commentary there again says these guys were 10 foot tall.
Yeah.
600 pounds.
Yeah. And this 85-year-old man.
Yeah, a 45-year-old man.
I know.
Look at them and say, really?
So, Mace, I know you just recently retired. Now, but look at our brother Caleb here. He don't ask for a community at the golf course, does he? He doesn't ask for a beachfront place. Give me that land with the giants. Those giants that terrified my people. Let me go there. With God's help, I can take this on. I think it's just awesome.
It just showed how much faith he had in God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's exactly. Yeah. His faith, he's just like, I love his song. I wish it was in our hymnal, Living by Faith. Y'all heard that one? Awesome. There's a man who's living by faith right here. Yeah. I just thought it was amazing. So verses 13 and 14 it comes to fruition. He gets the inheritance. And Joshua blessed him and gave him to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and to this day, because that he wholly followed. There's that word again. How many? We've seen that 6 times maybe. Wholly, W-H-O-L, because he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. All right, so interesting character, this Caleb. When we think of a faithful hero of the Bible, here's one when it comes to faith. The characteristics, just some takeaways, characteristics of Caleb that should speak to us and influence us. How good are we at faithfully looking forward? Do we struggle there sometimes? Yeah. He looked back at the past because he touches on it here, but he don't dwell in the past, does he? No, not at all. He wasn't stuck in the past. And he just didn't sit down and do nothing either. Instead, it was a springboard for him to move forward the events of the past. Do you see that? Sometimes we just want to sit down, don't we? Sometimes we just want to maybe, there's no hope. Lord, just take me. Is that our attitude sometimes? I don't know. I think sometimes it is. You just get tired, don't you? We get tired. But we could just reach down and get that faith recharged somehow, like Caleb. So I thought about that. Moving forward, looking forward. Churches, we as individuals, we can grow stale, can't we? If we don't strive to look forward and dwell in the past. Philippians chapter 3, Paul says, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward for the things before us. That was Caleb, wasn't it? I mean, he touched on the things from the past, but his thing was his big motivation was to move forward. Give me that mountain. I want to go. I want to drive out those giants. Caleb's faith, when you think about it, is almost reckless, isn't it? I mean, think about that. Are we holy? Are we holy in like that?
That picture is a little tiny fellow too.
Yeah, yeah, it might be. And I thought about the word holy. Obviously, it's mentioned so many times in just a handful of verses we covered. Let's take away something there. That word has a meaning. We covered it today and we looked at it. How is our relationship with the Lord today? Do you walk with God wholehearted? We need to ask ourselves that. This text kind of nudges on that thought, don't it? Do we? And we talked about the wilderness experience, and we are in a wilderness ourselves. We know that, but that's in this text. And do we have the heart of Caleb in this wilderness that we live in? Caleb did not spiritually retire as he grew older, did he? As we grow older, shouldn't we grow in the Spirit? You're never too old to do more, are you? This is a good adult Sunday school lesson when you think about that, isn't it? You know, older folks, we all need to look at, I would say that there's more days behind us than are ahead of us, right? And what are we going to do with that time, right? What are we going to do with that time? That's why when I think about Caleb and the vigor and the faith, that's what I got out of it. Verse 15 was not in our text, but it's early, and I just want to touch on it because it kind of brings everything full circle. Verse 15, not in our text, but it's important. The verse told us the land rested, and there was no war after this. Again, thinking about how this speaks to us. This rest that Israel accomplished is symbolic of the rest of a believer, okay? When we enter that relationship with Christ and we are holy, all in, do we have rest? Yeah, I think so. Anybody got anything to add? This was rather short, just a handful of verses.
It's been said, forget the past, you tend to repeat it in the future. Well, one thing I'm guilty of is I let things burden me down, I worry. I get in a situation I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But if I just remind myself to look at the past, how many times God's brought me through?
Yes, that's
How
right.
many times He's been there when I didn't see that light, but He was there the whole time. If I would just open my eyes or get out of the way, things are going to work out.
Yeah,
Maybe not the way I want them to, but always to the best.
yeah.
You just got to keep your faith. So you can't look forward looking back behind you, but you can't forget where you've
That's
been.
right.
He's talking about the giants. I just thinking here, a little while back, I seen something on TV, in these modern day and time, they showed this man, it was a giant, he was tall, he's almost up to the street light. And the doctors had a medical term for that, and they was trying to help him, trying to get him to stop growing. I just thought I'd share that. I've seen one in this day and time was a giant. And I don't remember what the medical term is, but the doctors had a medical term for him getting that big.
Yeah, I know when we had the first lesson on the original spy mission, I've taught it, and I remember we talked about those giants back then, and you could reiterate that today. do we face giants, don't we? What is the giant that, we're in that wilderness we talked about. We're in a wilderness. This place is not our home, okay? This is a wilderness. And yes, there will be giants that we have to face in our life. And you know what? You guys have faced them, all right? You're facing them now, and there's going to be another one, coming up, right? So, how do we face those giants? With faith. With faith in the Word, right? That's what, anyway, that's all I had. I appreciate y'all's attention this morning.